Hello guys, welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about Nazara and the gaming industry. So it's going to be a long video, but I've tried my best to make it as short as possible without omitting too much. So let's start with the industry size. Now, this chart surprised me a bit. In 2002, gaming was the same size as the music and movie industry. By 2008, the gaming industry was bigger than the sum of the film and the music industry combined. Fast forward to 2021, the gaming industry is valued at about $170 billion, while music and movie had a size of 60 and 340 billion respectively. And this gap is only going to widen from here. So what about our own Bollywood? The Bollywood film industry was valued at $2 billion in 2016. At that time, the gaming industry in India was nearly 25% of the Indian film industry. But by 2023, it's expected to exceed the Bollywood revenues by 0.8 billion and reach a value of USD 3.5 billion. So right even at home, things are happening. Among the leading countries based on gaming revenues, while US and China have traditionally dominated the market, the market in India is growing at a CAGR of 32%, which far exceeds the growth rates of China and USA that stand at 7 and 11% respectively. And the mobile gaming segment in the Indian gaming industry is taking the lead. It has the largest share in terms of revenue. Not only is mobile the largest, but it's also the fastest growing segment in India as compared to PC and console gaming. This segment is valued at $1.2 billion and is expected to reach a value of $3 billion by 2023. So it's growing at about 40%, and compare that to the growth rates in China and US, which is at about 15 and 12% respectively. Now, a console, be it PlayStation or Xbox, costs $400 to $500, and then you have to spend another $50 on individual games. Now, not everyone can afford that in a developing nation. And just for your information, in US, console gaming is bigger than mobile and growing faster. But for us in India, China is the best indicator of the future. Now, China used to grow at about 40%. India is where China was 10 years ago. Now, I don't know about the next 10 years, but it's safe to assume that Indian mobile gaming industry will grow at nearly 40% for the next 5 years at least. Now, what's driving all this growth? Of course, you have the obvious cheap data, growing mobile penetration, and all that. But let's get more India specific. So, India has about 380 million gamers. China, with roughly the same population, has 650 million gamers. So, there will be growth in the number of gamers, but that number will grow at about 8%. The gaming revenues, as you remember, are growing at 40%. So, here's how this is all going to pan out. The average age of an Indian gamer is 24. The average age of a gamer in US and China is 32. The average annual spend on gaming per individual is $23 in India, which is just 1/5 of the gaming spend in US and China. Now, I'm in my 30s and I play games all the time, but I'm a minority here because a lot of Indians of my generation still think of gaming as something teenagers do. And even if they do play some mobile game here and there, they're unlikely to spend money on it for various reasons. However, a lot of these 20 something gamers will have more disposable income once they get into the 30s, right? And they will be more open to spending money on gaming because for them, it is just like any other source of entertainment. If you can pay for Netflix, Spotify, why not gaming? Plus, gaming is going mainstream. It's getting localized in India. Games like Ludo, Teen Patti, Carom, they all become household names, especially during the lockdown. Lastly, you have your real money gaming. Now, this is the fastest growing segment in India. Games such as online poker, rummy, sports fantasy games like Dream 11 have gained significant traction in the Indian market in the recent years. Real money skill gaming contributes 80% of the mobile gaming market, and that's where all the investments are currently happening. Dream 11 is already a unicorn. So Nazara has something called Halaplay, which is a sports fantasy app where it targets sports fans from cricket, football, kabaddi. Now the platform allows users to form their own teams of players which are ranked on real life performance of players and bet certain amounts with a pool of players. So they charge a platform fee of about 6 to 7%, which is based on the total gaming transaction of the user. Now, this segment is just 3% of its revenues, but they do have plans to take it up to 8%. Now, the problem with that plan is that Nazara as a company looks for profitable growth in all the business verticals, at an EBITDA level at least. But this whole real money skill gaming space is seeing a lot of companies getting massive funding from PE funds. And these companies don't care about profitable growth right now. So, how do you compete with them? Plus, there's a lot of regulatory turbulence. Few of the large states have already banned real money gaming because for them it's gambling. Nazara feels that this segment is very large, but they want to avoid spending big for user acquisition till there's at least some clarity on these statutory issues. So currently, this whole venture is loss making. So let's see what happens here. But they have indicated that when the time is right, they might do an acquisition here at some stage. So gamified early learning tries to bring in the element of fun to learning. It makes learning more entertaining and engaging for kids. And USA is the largest contributor to this market and is expected to reach a size of 12.6 billion by 2023, growing at a rate of 47% CAGR. Now, the current size of this market in the US alone is more than double that of India's entire gaming industry. So the size of opportunity is huge, and it is at a very nascent stage globally. So far, schools in India have not completely adopted the concept of gamification of education. In fact, most schools don't like the idea at all. But the reality is that kids learn a lot more with an interactive environment. Playing games is not just fun, but it also involves learning if done right. Now, Kiddopia is one of the most popular apps in gamified early learning. So, in the US, where it gets most of its revenues, Kiddopia caters to children aged between 2 to 7 years. So, it's got 4 plus ratings on both Apple and Google Play Store. And the content is designed in house in India. And it basically focuses on basic math, spelling, color, fun and games. So there's an initial trial period of 7 days, following which one can opt for the monthly or the annual subscription plan. Now, yearly is priced at 60, monthly is priced at $8. So the good thing about this annual subscription plan is that you get cash in advance, and that can be used to acquire more users. Now, they acquired this in 2019, and at the time, the subscriber base consisted of 115K paying subscribers. That has grown to 320K paying subscribers. So June numbers saw a 25% increase in number of paying subscribers as compared to June 2020. However, compared to March, as you can see on the chart, there has been a 5% decline, and that's due to the impact of Apple's privacy policy. So Apple sometimes back launched a new feature because of which now you need explicit consent to track users on other apps website. So the result has been that it has reduced the data on the users. So user identification for targeted advertising is not possible like before. Now, Kiddopia gets more than 90% users from iOS. But this is not just a Kiddopia problem. The competitors will also have the same problem. But still, it's something that one needs to monitor here. However, company believes that the majority of this impact has been absorbed, and we need to see if this growth will sustain once preschool reopen. Otherwise, the app has a very good trial to activation ratio of almost 70%. Monthly churn is very low, just about 4 to 7%. And the good thing is Kiddopia share in US is just 4 to 5%. Now, as you can see, the growth here has been just phenomenal, and not just for the last 2 years, but prior to that as well. So currently the company is active in UK, Australia, Germany, and Spain, but you'll only get to see growth there once they get the strategy right. So they're still trying out a few things in those markets. Although the revenue traction would continue to remain robust, you shouldn't expect EBITDA margins going up because they will continue to invest back to get higher market share in this business. Now, guys, I've left out a few details about key metrics, unit economics of the business in this entire video because explaining all that would make this video too long for the average user. But for those interested, you can easily check that through the company's latest presentation. And if you have any questions, you can always reach me. A lot has changed in the gaming industry over the last few years. So earlier consumer purchased a specific game for his new device, but this has completely changed. In today's landscape, most games are free with the option to make in-app purchases, and this is what is called a freemium model. So freemium apps are currently dominating the mobile game market. So here users can play on the app for free, but they have to pay for certain features or items. It can be extra lives, weapons, maps, or access to certain levels. So these features won't be available to a basic user, or it will be available but will require a lot of time to procure. Some of the most popular games by revenues, such as Dota, Fortnite, PUBG, are free to play with the option to make in game purchases. Some games also generate revenues via in-game advertisements, and this could be some ad banner or some video between two levels. Now, here, before we proceed, let me tell you something about gamers in general. Now, majority of gamers are casual gamers who don't pay for anything. The serious gamers are the ones who drive revenues, and these guys don't play 10 different games at the same time. They're very loyal to the games they like. They want to be part of a social community, and game publishers want gamers to form communities because that increases the stickiness to the game. So if you're making a game with a freemium model, you want loyal gamers because if successful with these gamers, you can make a lot of money over a long period of time. The pure advertising model works better with casual gamers. It's rare that these kind of games live long because they're usually very easy, and if there's no challenge in a game, people eventually get bored. But most people who make such games are already aware of it. So they'll make a game, make the ad money, and then go make some other ad game. So because making a game today, a mobile game, isn't very expensive, and hence the higher competition here. WCC is the world's largest cricket simulation game franchise on mobile. It has different game titles for cricket. In the past, it had a advertising model, but lately they have moved to the in-app purchase model or IAP model. So on an average, it's played for 47 minutes per day by 13 million monthly active users. Now that's a big number because the average time on a casual game is just 15 minutes by a user. So right away you can see a much better engagement level, and the game has a very strong following among those who love virtual sports simulation games. So it gets over 1 20K downloads every day organically without any marketing spends. So currently only 0.1 to 0.15% of the users make in-app purchases, but they expect this number to go up to 1% by FY25. So that's a 10x jump in the next 4 years. They still get ad revenues for older game titles, but the growth is going to come from in-app purchases. Now, in-app purchasing model is just 2 to 3 year old phenomenon in India. UPI payments have been the game changer here. So just to give you a sense, in 2018, Indian IAP revenue was 50 million, right? And today that's $500 million. So that's a 10x jump in 3 years. And even after such a jump, this number is not even 5% of the IAP revenues of China. And with a game like WCC, I feel Nazara is at the right segment, because in a country like India, what better game to bank on than cricket? And sports titles in general have a longer shelf life. The best example I can give you here is a game franchise called FIFA by EA Sports. So even though there have been a lot of video games on football over the years, FIFA is the one with a cult following, because of network effects. They have the whole community, people keep playing the game, the whole shebang. So something like that is likely to happen here. So to give you an idea, in-app revenues for WCC grew by 75% in Q1 FY22 over Q1 FY21. Freemium Nazara has other games, but most of the revenues in this segment come from cricket. And here you can see that the revenues have been flattish YOY from FY20 to FY21. This is primarily because of them switching to an in-app purchasing model. But you can see a positive impact of the same in Q1 numbers already. Another thing, if you notice, is that the EBITDA in FY21 is lower, and that's because they spend a lot of money developing content for WCC3 last year. So the accounting is such that they do not capitalize much, but this content that they create can continue generating revenue even after its expense in the income statement. And there is some seasonality in the business too. Revenues tend to go up with the IPL cricket season. Now, this is just 4% of total revenues of Nazara, but this can be a significant part of it going forward. Even today, most games make money through ads, but that's set to change. Now, what you're seeing on your screen is a typical esports event. A stadium full of people watching professional video gamers compete at the highest level. 10 years ago, had you told me something like this would happen, I wouldn't have believed you. Today, it's a $1 billion market growing at 16% CAGR globally. The prize money in these tournaments goes into the millions of dollars, and it's mainstream now. And there's even talks about including esports in the Olympic Games. Personally, I wouldn't be surprised to see that. It's already happening in the Asian Games 2022. China is the largest esports market in the world. However, the esports market in India is expected to grow faster than China at a CAGR of 25% for the next couple of years. See, because China has already has its phase of high growth. Now, as in-app revenues continue to grow in India, it will attract more publishers because of the potential to make money. And that's when you'll see the real growth in esports. So let's understand how this whole ecosystem works. So the esports ecosystem consists of game publishers, gamers, media companies, online streaming platforms like Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, etc., and esports companies. Now, esports companies are the ones that host regular events and tournaments where the professional players compete for large prize pools. So each tournament has a prize pool which can go into millions of dollars. In India, it's still very small though. Esports companies provide infrastructure, they manage online registrations, and general event management stuff. Globally, ESL and Major League Gaming are the largest esport companies that organize gaming competitions around the world. Esports companies partner with game publishers such as Blizzard, Riot Games, Valve, Microsoft, Tencent, and multiple others. So, game publishers are the ones that provide these game titles. And for game publishers, it's like a marketing tool to promote the game. So they want more tournaments, they want more fans. Then you have your players who are usually part of a team, just like in cricket. And these are highly talented individuals who practice all day, just like any other professional athlete. So they have their own fan following. Some of these players make more money than our IPL cricket players. Then, of course, you have your media and OTT platforms who showcase these esports. YouTube and Twitch are the most famous ones. Uh, but in India, Hotstar is also one of the OTT platforms which shows esports. So, just like in cricket or football or any other sports, media and OTT companies pay for media rights to broadcast. Now, as the popularity of esports grows, more media companies will want a piece of the action, and these media rights will keep getting more expensive. So globally, there are tournaments that are filling stadiums bigger than our cricket stadiums. Also, as esports gets more popular, you'll see a lot more demand from sponsors. Globally, most of the money comes from the sponsors of the event. However, in India, that's not the case yet. It's still at a very nascent stage, but it's growing very fast in India. With a growing number of casual gamings turning professional, uh, sponsorship increasing from brands, and a steady increase in the number of tournaments and cash prize pools. So, Nodwin Gaming is the only company in India to have rights over professional esports tournament IPs and content IPs across regional, national, and international esport tournaments. So, it's a pioneer and it has strong relationships with these global gaming publishers. Nodwin has also partnerships with ESL, Mountain Dew Arena, and manages gaming events such as ESL India Premiership, Knockout Fights, etc. And it's entered into partnerships with game developers as well. Tencent, Riot Games, Craftons. It contributes to about 70 to 80% of the total prize pool in India. So, how does Nodwin make money? It makes money through media rights. So, they receive fixed fee for that. Then they will receive money from game publishers and sponsors. Some of the sponsors also provide equipment for the use of the event. Media right licensing contributed to about 49% of its revenues in Q1 and 55% in FY21. Game publishers formed second largest source of revenue, around 30%. Now, Nodwin has expanded in Sri Lanka, Bhutan, Afghanistan, Maldives. So Nodwin is growing very fast, but the whole esports ecosystem is also developing. There are a lot of players and teams who are bringing new fans to this world through the YouTube channels. Nodwin's competitors, small though, are also doing the part to make esports more popular among new viewers. And it's all going to benefit Nodwin in the long run because just like in cricket, everyone wants to watch IPL and not just local matches. Now, one of the games which really drove esports popularity was PUBG, which got banned last year because it was a Chinese-owned company. Now the game is back, but with a Korean game publisher called Krafton. Now, earlier this year, Krafton invested in Nodwin for 15% stake. So right now, there are no offline events because of COVID, but whenever they're allowed, you can expect Nodwin to host the official events of the new PUBG. Let's have a look at the numbers. So as you can see, revenues have almost doubled, EBITDA has almost doubled. So the growth is really phenomenal here, and not just for like the last 2 years, but even before that. So as esport becomes bigger, bigger sponsors come, the media rights for such events will also become bigger. However, the cost of doing an event by Nodwin will not scale up proportionately. So you'll see EBITDA margins go up. Maybe not in the near term, because there are still days of high growth where they are also spending to develop the whole ecosystem. But in the long run, it will go up. Now, sports simulation games based on football or basketball or cricket currently form a very small part of the esports globally. Most of it is games like PUBG, Dota, Counter-Strike. However, sports simulation games is gaining traction. And in a country like India, where cricket is like a religion, I see a strong possibility of a cricket simulation game playing a key role in introducing a lot of first time viewers to esports. And once people start watching it, it doesn't feel strange to them. In fact, it's quite addictive. And more viewership is critical to getting more publishers here. Sportskeeda is also a part of the whole esports segment. It's the largest esports news destination website in India with content across WWE, esports, cricket, soccer, and basketball. And content is primarily sourced from freelance sports journalists in India and overseas. Now, Sportskeeda generates revenues by displaying ads on its website, which is a function of average monthly users. Now, you can see from the chart on your screen that that number has been going up at a very good rate. Now, most of the traffic is generated by users who are there for WWE and esports, and from the US and not India. Here at the revenues and the EBITDA scale up, right? And just have a look at the EBITDA margin, 48%. So this is the advantage of having a website which is very scalable. You don't really have to spend on anything really. Content cost is very low because you have, as I said earlier, freelance reporters working for you. So, and the benefit of having a website is that you can promote your own esports event as well. Telco subscription business is Nazara's legacy business. So, this business is primarily focused on offering Android and HTML games to mass mobile internet users and first time mobile gamers in emerging markets. Uh, they are typically offered in a bouquet format through periodic subscription or on a downloadable basis. So these are basically very simple and easy to play games where the content cost is very low. So this business has been on a decline for the last 4 years. When you have so many free games on smartphones, why pay for a game which is inferior in content? So I feel these revenues are expected to decline, but the management is still hopeful and trying to revive this segment. So recently they acquired rights to distribute a library of premium Disney and Star Wars games. Now, as you can see, the revenues here have been declining, so nothing to be excited about here. This segment as a whole contributes about 13% to the total revenues, and going forward, you can expect this contribution to just further decline. So already seen the segmental performance of the different segments. Here you see last year's total revenues grew by 83% YOY. Now, usually I would like to show you the last 4-5 years financials, but because there have been so many acquisitions, it won't give you a fair picture. Looking at the margins at this stage doesn't make sense because whatever they make is going to be plowed back into the business. But the good news is this is not a company that's going to burn a lot of cash in the process. They do have an eye on the cash flows. So even if they are making losses at a PAT level, at an EBITDA level, you can expect them to be positive. Now let's see some of the risks involved here. So skill-based, fantasy, trivial, real money gaming are subject to regulatory risk. As I said earlier, a lot of states have banned this. We do not know how this is going to evolve, so there's that risk. However, Nazara has a very small part of that business. Um, Now, significant part of Nazara's revenues, 40% of it actually, come from this esports segment. And esports business again comes from a few games. If some other game gets banned like PUBG was, then it can affect the revenues. Then, of course, as I also mentioned earlier, Kiddopia is witnessing difficulty in customer acquisition due to Apple's privacy policy. So that is something that we'll have to monitor here, and we'll have to see if the company is able to acquire new users without spending too much on customer acquisition. And lastly, this is gaming. It's a highly competitive industry with low barriers to entry. It's very easy making a game, and very few users are loyal to a certain game. So that's the risk to this whole thing. Now, let me give you my take and summarize the whole thing for you. An investment in Nazara means you're trusting the management to continue doing what they've been doing so far. That is, finding good acquisition targets and then scaling them. So, let me tell you a bit about them. Now, Nazara was started in 1999 by Mr. Nitin Mittersain while he was still in college. So, Nazara has been his whole life. He doesn't have any meaningful interest in other business. So, skin in the game. And he's still involved in the business along with the CEO, Manish Agarwal, who's been with the company since 2015. And it's my opinion that they're both very passionate about the business. Now, the various games, be it World Cup, Kiddopia, Halaplay, Nordwind Gaming, they've all been acquired in the last 2 to 4 years, and Nazara has a majority stake in all of them. But the day-to-day operations of these business are still done by the original founders, and such acquisition-led growth is what you should expect going forward. Now, typically you might see this as a bad thing, but gaming is a very dynamic and fast-moving world. But no matter how fast, how smart you are, you can get disrupted faster than you think. A game is popular today and it's not tomorrow. So the idea is to spread your risks by diversifying. So they have something called the Friends of Nazara Network, where they acquire these companies with a majority controlling stake in it, but they still want the founders of that business to run the day-to-day operations. Now, for the founders of these acquired companies, they see the value that Nazara brings to the table. They have seen how Nazara can help them scale up their business because Nazara has demonstrated that with other businesses. Plus, even they realize how risky this whole gaming business can be, and they're happy to take a stake in Nazara instead. So even they de-risk the portfolio. And while doing all of this, uh, Nazara will avoid cash burn, which is how they operated so far. So that gives me some comfort. Next, let's talk about real money skill gaming. So this is where the money is in near term, but in the long term, this kind of growth has a ceiling. This segment is not inclusive. Not everyone wants to do real money gaming. Plus, it's not fun watching someone else play teen patti, carom, or fantasy sports. But it is fun watching a cricket simulation game. So, as the Indian market matures, you will see in-app purchase model dominating and advertising taking a backseat just like it is globally. And that should benefit players like Nazara in the long run who want to build businesses, games that last. Which brings me to esports. Now, as game publishers see in-app revenues coming, they will want to promote their own games via esports. OTT platforms will want the media rights due to increased viewership. And just like IPL, these rights will keep getting more expensive, all of which should benefit Nazara. So, all in all, I feel that Nazara can continue growing at current rates. If that happens, current valuations don't look that expensive to me. But if it doesn't, then with these valuations, one can lose a lot of money very fast, and that's not a risk I'm willing to take. So I do have a very small position here, and from time to time I might nibble a bit, but please don't take any of this as an investment advice. This video was purely for educational purpose. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for watching.